Oh, what? Hey, lost in space and time for over 10,000 years on a mission they were never meant to return from. Oh, thank you, Martin. They have returned from the horrible secrets of space. God, I look worse every week. Eventually, my head's just going to fall off. You, however, Michael, are looking good. I get another week without.
Yeah, no more Aaron.
Aaron C. Lee.
What's with the vertical hold on you guys?
What's that?
You both, your heads look smaller and wider.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I don't know. Well, we're here with very special guest star.
That's me, Martino.
It's Martino. Oh.
And that's it. That's all of us.
And that's it. Well, this has been the comic. I feel like I'm not super into this one. We kind of came up with this topic at the last minute.
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk today about. I messaged the chat. We have a group chat, and I messaged the chat a few days ago, and I said I want to discuss the Erik Larsen Jim Valentino feud.
And Aaron said, "No, I'm not coming on that."
So we got rid of Aaron because he's the least knowledgeable person about comics here, and I found this fascinating. So actually, since we're talking something from cartoonist kayfabe, of course, Aaron is not here for that. About 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, for those of you who don't know who
was that long ago,
Erik Larsen and Jim Valentino are, they're two of the 6 Image founders, even though there's technically 7 people with Will Portacio. Will Portacio, of course, never became a full Image partner because I think he had a family member health issue in the Philippines, and I think that he was not available, didn't think you could be available to be a full-time Image partner with his family's health situation, sister's health situation in the Philippines. Sidebar. Erik Larsen, of course, was coming off the heels of Spider-Man, Jim Valentino, Guardians of the Galaxy. 2 of Marvel's biggest artists leave to form Image Comics, which was a huge thing back when I was like 10 years old. I don't know. I was thinking it's 10? Well, it's 31 years, right?
Yeah, I'm just making it older.
Maybe I was 11. 91 or 92? April 92.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I would have been 10 going on 11. It doesn't matter. Hi, Jonathan Lego Man. Congrats on your Kickstarter, by the way. Erik Larsen, Jim Valentino. Jim Valentino came from the world of kind of indie comics, I guess. I wouldn't say underground comics. I think he touched on some of the underground.
Right. Jim Valentino's best-known work before Marvel, to my knowledge, was his book Normal Man that he published through Aardvark Vanheim.
I forgot that until you pointed that out today. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I'll throw a shout out to Funky Town Comics. I was lucky enough to pick up a few issues of that from their dollar bins recently. So you never know what you'll find out.
The Comic Shop podcast with going way back to Lucas, always promoting other stores and podcasts.
Now I know why I don't put that camera on that table, because if you move around, it shakes. Yeah.
Unstable.
Where was I? So anyway, Jim Valentino, underground or independent comics, maybe on a Normal Man, Aardvark Vanheim, Dave Sim. Erik Larsen gets into the industry very young. DC stuff, gets into Punisher, Amazing, Spider-Man. 2 superstar artists. To me, Valentino was always. To me, Valentino was always the elder statesman of the Image group, that all of these guys are in their mid to late 20s. I believe Rob is like 24, 25.
Yeah.
And maybe Todd is 30.
At the most.
Or 29. I think Larsen was like 27, which blows my mind, actually.
Yeah.
But Valentino was a little bit older than them. I think Valentino was maybe 10 years older than these guys. And I think that he was kind of not the patriarch of the group, but the guy who'd been around a little bit longer, had been doing
seasoned.
He was seasoned. He had done independent publishing stuff before. I'm just giving you my oral history of Image Comics now. So the group forms, and I believe that Valentino. Is it Todd who brings on Larry Marder, or Valentino brings in Larry Marder? But there's another independent comic publisher who is brought in because the Image guys realize that they are not publishers. They're learning the process of publishing comics, and they need some kind of guidance. So Larry Marder comes in. So from 1992 until 1999, this gentleman, Larry Marder, is the publisher of Image Comics. So he's kind of wrangling the cats here. Everybody is super creative and doing all these wild books and wild imprints. in Wildstorm. And Larry Marder is the figure in the middle of this creative hurricane that's taking place. And when Marder decides to step aside after 7 years of doing this, a void opens up for publisher. They're not sure what to do. I believe Jim steps in and says, and I could be wrong on this too, but I believe Jim steps in and says, I have ideas for what we can do with Image Comics. And his concern at the time was, what was that? His concern at the time was the quality of the books had begun to degrade. I think you lost.
Begun is a very polite word, saying that no, it was there. It was.
Yeah,
I don't think he was wrong.
Jumped ship.
You have Jim Lee leaving in 1996. You have Rob Liefeld. No.
They did the Heroes Reborn
in 96
thing in 96, and then it was, I think,
98.
I don't know when Jim Lee left. I just know when he sold Wildstorm.
Well, if you paid attention to our podcast on Danger Girl and all the chaos, or not the chaos, the Cliffhanger comics, you'd be able to know Michael. But look at that, you didn't do your homework, man.
No.
Anyway,
and we're not telling you the answer.
Jim Lee leaves with Wildstorm, which was a big chunk of books for Image, and probably a lot of cash that was coming in from them as well, because it was a very large imprint. You know,
the
was
second most prolific of the imprints at the time.
Yeah, first being
Extreme Studios.
Well,
if they were still there,
Extreme was gone. Extreme was gone as well.
Yeah, and Top Cow was teetering at that point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Top Cow was there. Top Cow left for a little bit
Yep.
during like that 1995 thing with Rob, but I don't think they only left for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, long story, even longer, because I'm just talking about the history of Image Comics. Where was I going with this? So Valentino steps up and says, "I think I'd be a good publisher. These are the things that I'm concerned about: the quality of the books. I have good connections with independent comic creators that I think we could bring aboard. I can provide some art direction. I've been a publisher before. Like I've self-published books. I know what I'm doing." And again, he's the older, wiser, elder statesman of the group. And so the Image founders agree that Jim Valentino should be the
He wasn't
publisher.
doing much of anything else anyway.
I don't think he really was. I don't recall a ton of Shadowline books coming out then, but I don't know. I don't remember. I was 11. I wasn't taking notes.
Another one not preparing.
So after 4 years of being a publisher at Image Comics, there's kind of a even Valentino, I believe, said a non-bloody coup, and Erik Larsen
said it was a coup as well.
Yeah, said it was a hostile takeover, and even Erik used the word I was kind of a dick. But Erik believed, again, one of the other Image founders believed that they weren't achieving the results in the comic industry at the late 90s too. Like everything kind of
both of these periods were like an extreme flux.
Not good for comics in general. And I don't think Valentino's ideas, I'm talking very fast tonight too. I don't think Valentino's ideas were bad, but Larsen's ideas are, we're not getting enough mainstream comic creators, big name comic creators coming in. So what I can do, because I have a lot of connections with these people, is bring in some bigger names, court some of these different, thank you, Jonathan, or the Football MM, court some of these bigger creators to come in and help us, and Erik uses the term right the ship. Now, he says this on Cartoonist Kayfabe in an interview 3.5 years ago. He uses the term, I needed to right the ship, in regards to how Valentino was doing as a publisher of Image Comics. Valentino then recently has a health issue where he has pneumonia and some other chest whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He is in the hospital for a while. And Valentino comes out and states publicly, I need to set the record straight about my time as the publisher of Image Comics, which I find very interesting that it's 3.5 years later. And I understand that maybe you have a health issue that makes you look at your own mortality. But
your legacy.
Yeah, your legacy. But he decides, and apparently, again, this was an interview done on Cartoonist Kayfabe, and we all know that's probably the biggest comic book YouTube channel.
Never heard of it.
The Kayfabe guys invited Valentino on to tell his side of the story. He did not. Instead, he decides to go on another podcast and release an article basically with a timeline of the things that he did as publisher of Image Comics. And the podcast that Valentino did, and I'm not here to take sides. Full disclosure, and I think everybody knows this. I'm a big Erik Larsen fan. I also think that Erik Larsen sometimes when he talks can be, just like he says, he can be a dick. He can be very blunt.
We have a Savage Dragon fan, a Shadowhawk fan, and a guy who doesn't care about either of these guys. So we're
okay. Yeah, good. We're representing all sides. That's actually an excellent point that you're making.
Yeah, great idea. We have a mediator.
Identical Visti. Oh, who is that?
I don't know.
Identical Visti is following us. Thank you.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made. You can always unfollow.
But don't.
So
Need the views.
Jim feels the need to address this side of the story, and even watching the cartoonist kayfabe clip with Erik Larsen, it's very brief. It's only about a minute or maybe 2 minutes at the most, where they wanted him to discuss the history of how he took over as publisher. Basically, he said, yeah, it was kind of a hostile takeover. However, Jim admits that all the Image founders agreed that we need to change direction, and this is why we'd like to, Erik stepping in. He's somebody that has a track record of getting things done.
Not a Comic-Con time, ba-doom.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Again, I'm going to defend Larsen. That, like, when he was putting out stuff for Megaton with Gary Carlson, when other artists weren't making the deadlines, he was, as a 19, 20-year-old person, he was the one who was stepping in and just, like, finishing inking pages and putting things together. And, like,
he needs one of those type of guys at his studio now, then.
I think what he does is he's always working. I think he's working on, like, these big omnibus hardcover volumes that just take up time. I think he's a guy that's always working on stuff, but it's just him. And I think sometimes he just prioritizes different things over the book, because I don't think the book makes him a lot of money.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that some of these older things, these big collections where the material is already there, I just need to format it, and every 5 years somebody's going to buy the big honking collection again. So, anyway, where was I going with this? Larsen takes over as publisher. Now, I have a weird memory of all of this because I was very much involved with on this website. Back in the day, there used to be like forums. Now it's just Reddit or whatever. But you would go to the savagedragon.com forum, and there was discussions, and Erik is somebody that's very forward-facing and talks a lot about what's going on and is willing to engage with other creators, fans, and things like that. So I do feel like I was kind of sitting there front row seats for part of this. And I talk with Erik occasionally. Like, we've known each other. I don't think he knows me. I think sometimes he forgets who I am. But
we all do.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we talk and connect, and he published Caetano's story in the back of the book for us, and I believe I've had letters published in there before. I don't know this is a fact, but if you look online, it does say that I have a letter published in like 167 or something like that.
They love the dragon.
He's green. He's like
green.
Hulk with a fin on his head. Larsen takes over as publisher and publishes very few issues of Dragon over the next 4 years, and decides
a lot of work when you're a publisher.
Yes,
that was the first thing the Image guys realized when they took over.
Which Valentino said this too. Like, you need art direction. I remember Erik talking about, again, back in the day, like helping people with logo designs or having names for their books. And Valentino touches on that in the podcast too. And I'm not saying that they're not actively working with artists and writers to craft better quality books. But Valentino was very much looking for newer indie people who are doing great work and trying to expose them to a larger audience, trying to elevate the level of product. Erik this is coming off of like the bad girl craze, and Erik sometimes does all of this TNA stuff in books that I don't really care for, but also was a product of the time, that if you can bring over some big name creators and have some more, tantalizing imagery on the cover, titties and ass, maybe we can sell more books that way and still deal with higher level creators. To which I'm talking a lot too, if anybody wants to cut me off. This was just super interesting to me, because these are two people who, I know that Erik has gotten in trouble in the past with the things that he said, but for Jim to be so vocal and to come out and say such strong things about, his legacy and what happened during that time, and to almost see like an animosity towards that I think that this has been festering for a while. And then, I need to say it at a certain point in time that, like, I am valid. What I did with Image helped the brand. and I don't think there's disputing that. But I think that Jim and Erik just had two different visions of what might work for the company. I think that at the time, the comics market is just not doing that great in general.
Yeah, either time.
Image isn't what it is now. And one of the interesting points that I come back to is that I don't think it's a debate about who saved Image, because my takeaway from all of this is who saved Image was Robert Kirkman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hands down.
And they both kind of have an argument that, not that they discovered Robert Kirkman, but Robert Kirkman first published a book when Jim Valentino was the publisher. But Erik Larsen was the one who gave him that first book.
Yes.
And again, I had a front row seat I would watch Kirkman.
After Kirkman chased after Larsen. I mean, he's admitted that before in the past that he's like, I had an in with this guy, so I'm going to keep taking advantage of this.
And that's
as much as possible.
That's the nice thing about Larsen is I feel like I can interact with him, I can talk to him, I can send him friends' art, and he publishes it in the book occasionally. So like he's always kind of been available.
Yes.
And I'm not saying the other Image guys aren't.
No, but I can at least tell you that from the way that Jim Valentino posts about things on Facebook and the way he says things.
Hey, Fruitless 3 is following. Thanks, Fruitless.
Cool. He seems to be a bit more curmudgeonly. I have something that I purchased here a while ago, and I'm not 100% sure if it's something that Jim Valentino actually signed or not.
Right.
And he's made himself so unavailable online that it's impossible for me to actually get a hold of him to find out if it's legit or not.
Yeah, well, it looks like Fruitless is a spam bot here, right?
How unfortunate. And to touch back on the Robert Kirkman thing, because we'll end up coming across this again in just a little bit. I find it funny, even though I do like Jim Valentino very much. I find it funny that he wants to take credit for the Kirkman thing when historically he did not want anything to do with The Walking Dead. He didn't think zombie books sold. He thought they were silly. And it wasn't until, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robert Kirkman mentioned something along the lines of a UFO invasion or aliens.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
I always thought was a joke for years.
Yeah.
That Valentino finally said, "Okay, we'll give you your chance."
Yeah. So again, front row seat I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid, let's say go back to 1999, and I'm on the senior in high school, freshman in college, and I'm watching this Robert Kirkman character post his pro wrestling comics on the Savage Dragon forum, which characters that later became he later turned them into characters from Capes. That was his for hire superhero group. So a lot of those wrestling characters he just turned into these, whatever. But I thought, this is Kirkman starting to do maybe Battle Pope with Tony Moore and pushing this stuff on Erik, and Erik saying, no. Oh, Battle Pope for the win. Look at that. We're on the same page here. Erik's starting to say no to the pitches that he's getting from Kirkman, but Kirkman is so persistent. Larsen kind of on the forum just says, I will let you write a Super Patriot mini for me, and we'll see how that does. And he wrote a Super Patriot mini, and it was good. And I believe that there was something else. He may have written a Freak Force mini or whatever, but Erik, I believe, was the one who kind of brought him into Image under his wing. And again, Jim Valentino's approving things. Yep. But then it gets into the debate of, well, is it Kirkman or is it Jim Valentino? And I know that Kirkman talked with Todd McFarlane a little bit too, or whatever. Or no, that was the thing, right? Didn't they meet at a con and he didn't know who he was?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm mistaken about. Maybe they had messaged or something like that. But again, there was the open.
McFarlane knew Bendis. That's who he knew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but Kirkman is the one who starts with. Is it Walking Dead first or Invincible first?
I think it's Invincible.
I think it's Invincible by like 6 months, and then Walking Dead maybe 6 months after that. But both of those books turned into this enormous thing, and ultimately, I would say it doesn't matter if Michael Calley or I was the publisher of Image Comics at the time.
Right.
Robert Kirkman wanted to publish his books in Image, and it didn't matter who the publisher was. He was going to get in there and publish his comics or put out his comics.
Aliens or no?
No aliens. Yeah, doesn't matter.
As I keep talking, I think the other person who saved Image Comics or changed Image Comics is Erik Stevenson.
Yep.
And I should have looked this up beforehand. I believe Erik Stevenson came from Extreme Studios and went to Image with a guy named Matt Hawkins. And both of those people were the behind-the-scenes people for both publishers, for both Larsen, or Valentino and then Larsen. And both of Valentino and Larsen credit Erik Stevenson
helping them out,
for helping to craft what Image has become. And what did they do? Erik Stevenson became the successor to Erik Larsen, because Larsen just wants to go back and do books at this point. He'd done.
It's too much work to.
I think it is. It's helping people design and do all this stuff, and then it's just you're not putting out your stuff. And I think he's a guy that said 1,000,000 times, the only thing I want to do is put out my own comic. Like, I don't care about a movie, I don't care about a TV show. Like, if somebody wants to do that, great. Let me know. But I'm not going to put my time and energy. Todd wants to put his energy into a Spawn movie apparently, but
and he'll do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll
see.
My takeaway again. I think that the truth of the history of Image Comics in that tumultuous period lies somewhere in between what.
Oh, it's the same as the foundation of this. It's a group effort.
Yeah.
It's not happening without several people working.
But everyone wants to take credit for the idea themselves because of how those 6 or 7 individuals are. They're all very motivated. They all want the number one success spot, and they don't want anyone to take that from them. So of course they're going to argue back and forth.
They're fiercely competitive.
Yep.
And I think Valentino did a great job of making Image more available.
Oh, for sure.
Opening more outlets and things. It backfired a little bit in parts, but for the most part, it's.
You want to explain how he made Image more accessible?
Basically, at the time, Image was comic stores only.
Correct.
And he explored avenues to get them into bookstores, newsstands, things like that, to get the trades and things. They didn't have a very good trade system at the time, which of course they do now. Much better. I think you can find virtually
a better
any of the
trade
Image
system
stuff.
than pretty much any other company. They do the $10. The $10 volume 1s is really, really great for getting people into a series.
Do they do that anymore though?
It's actually funny they don't.
They don't. They stopped it. Yeah.
So I believe it was Valentino who pushed for that.
I think so.
And when he did the 30th, Valentino did a very cool book like a year and a half ago. It was the 30th anniversary of Image Comics, and it was kind of his history because he has a lot of documentation.
Yes.
And it's funny that he was talking about how proud he was of the $9.99 firsts at Image Comics, and I feel like it was like that month or the next month they stopped doing $9.99 trades for Image Comics. So,
but yeah, it's great. $10 for a trade. You're gonna.
We were cashing someone out for one on Monday, and I was confused as to why it was only $10 because I fall for it every time. Like, oh, this should be more.
Yeah, the big egos that are there. And this will never be replicated in comics again, that you had rock stars and everybody contributed to the birth of this company that's been wildly successful. And I think everybody just remembers things differently at this point in time. And I think that I hate to say it's old men are not arguing. I really don't know if there's beef between Valentino and Larsen. It seems like Valentino was legitimately hurt by the comment that was made. During the podcast, he talks about, yes, I do agree that all of the Image founders said that Erik was going to be the one to replace me. And then he made some remarks that I don't want to believe that they were true, that it sounded like almost bullying by some of the other Image founders, saying that you need to stay here. You can't go back to Marvel or DC like us. We're the better, stronger, more talented group. I don't want to say it incorrectly, but it did sound like there was a bruised ego there, that his defenses were high, and maybe this is something that's really bothered him for years and years and years, and as such the story has changed and manifested into the situation. I can't believe somebody as talented as Jim Valentino though would take any kind of bullying or belittling. And I believe that all the Image guys are huge egos, but I don't want to believe that they would be, it's like brothers. I think of it as the brothers were like, yeah, we fight and we tease and we whatever, but at the end of the day, I want to believe that they all care about one another. And even if they don't, we're not pals and we're not in the same meetings all the time. So
that's another thing.
I hope that's
came
incorrect.
Up was weird was how little communication that they actually did have.
With just all the Image guys?
They don't have monthly, quarterly meetings or anything like that. So the things that Valentino was even doing that would probably not be on the radar for most of the other
That is very
founders,
strange.
and which I think is part of the contention of what happened in that time period.
I wasn't there. I don't remember all the history of things like that. In the beginning, there were a lot of meetings, and I think isn't that the famous story of Liefeld being kicked out, and he faxes in his resignation during this group meeting.
Yeah.
Then for a period of time after Image was established, I believe that the founders would only meet like once a year, where they would get together and have some kind of like conference and whatever.
I mean, they're all basically running their own individual comic company under this umbrella. They can't really pay much attention to Image Central.
No.
I believe it was like the Image 15th or 20th anniversary. They got together on a panel in San Diego, or maybe not San Diego. They don't like, a lot of them don't like San Diego, New York, whatever. They got together at some Comic-Con.
Chicago, probably.
And yeah, does that still exist? They got what does we've talked about that. They got together and it was kind of like, oh yeah, we haven't seen each other or been together in years. And Valentino in the podcast makes a comment, and I'm not sure if it has to do with the current situation with Valentino and Larsen, but says, yes, next week we're supposed to get together and do a Zoom, and we haven't all spoken on a Zoom in like 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So part of me thinks it could just be sheer coincidence that they're just getting together, but I also wonder, like, maybe it is to kind of like clear the air about some of these things. Maybe not. Maybe it's just talking business and we haven't talked in years. Like, is there anything we need to be focusing on? I don't know. But just a very interesting.
Well, either way it goes, neither of these two guys ruined Image.
No.
I think, yeah, they're approaching it from two different viewpoints, and I think you could say the criticisms that one may levy towards the other are absolutely true, because I think they're just approaching this from two different points of view. And you know these people, and I know these people, and I like these books, and you like these books, and I want to keep it classy, and I want to make what sells.
Yep.
And it's just, but I've never listened to, I've listened to the Image stuff and listened to the founders talk before, but Jim just seemed not like a wounded animal, but like he really, like maybe this health scare really is one of these things where it's like, I feel like I did all these important things. I don't want the echo chamber of kayfabe, and I think that this is one of the things that happens as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yes.
You have this group of people that's fed an idea that may or may not be true, and I think that there's some truth to it, but you're getting Erik Larsen's side of the story.
Yep.
Like, you're not getting Jim Valentino's side of the story.
And it's not even that much of a story.
No.
being
it's
told
not.
at the time.
And but now is it one of these things that's going to be regurgitated throughout history? And I could see how that is like, hey man, I was the one you trusted with the car keys for 4 years, and I did a lot of good things, and I was working with the Kirkmans and the Bendises and the things like that, and bringing in some different independent creators, and trying to do what I thought was good, what was good for the brand.
I'm almost. I would have to look at what titles were out around that time, but I don't think I was getting anything Image before like Powers and Sam and Twitch.
And we said Powers might have been 2000.
Yeah, so it's through
and
that
Sam
area.
and Twitch was 99.
Yep.
Yeah, so for me as a comic person, I think that the Valentino run did make it more of a legitimate thing, comic to buy. It wasn't just something that's salacious or gratuitous.
Yes.
But also, there must have been issues with the company, because 4 years later, and I think Valentino said he had a 5-year plan or something like that, which is, sometimes you don't have 5 years to figure things out. Yeah. So he had 4 years to figure things out, and if all the other founders were kind of saying, let Erik do it now,
especially with what the state of the comic industry was at that point and the flux that was going on.
Yeah. That was a weird tipping point, right?
you remember it well.
Oh yes, totally. I
That
remember
was
it from my
5 months
diapers.
old.
Yep.
It is funny when we talk about these things. And it's like, oh yeah, he wasn't even born yet.
No.
He's like, I remember pulling these books out of the dollar bins from here when I was
There
a
you go,
kid.
yeah.
So that's my connection to
That's
all
what
of
Image
this.
books were. Dollar bin books,
Uh-huh.
basically, coming right off.
I
It
mean-
was in that time period.
Yep.
And those same books are still
Still
dollar
here,
bin
yeah.
books.
We'll keep bringing them back in.
Hey, let's look at an Image book real quick. I was going to kind of goof on this, like, oh, this is who you want as the
Channel Line
publisher.
special.
But thinking, oh, this cover's just so bad.
Mhm.
But man, it's a beautiful book.
Mike Callie is a baby.
Uh-huh.
Look at this. This is an
Is
Aaron
that
Z.
a
Lee
comment from
type.
someone? Jonathan Lego Man?
Yep.
Oh,
Michael
that's a-
Kelly is a baby.
Mhm.
He's a beautiful baby.
Yeah. So Shadowhawk 3 is our first story here with creator, writer, and artist Jim Valentino, with Chance Wolfe doing figure inks, Mike Wolfe lettering, Brad Foster doing background inks, and Len Senecal as editor. And I believe that is all of the people.
Len
that signed the
Senecal,
front of
former
this.
customer of the comic shop.
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Wow. Okay.
Arlene would probably be able to tell better, but I'm pretty sure that he wrote into Image a lot complaining about their grammar and what have you, and
Yes.
they shot him scripts to go over
So
That-
for them.
I have heard that story before,
Yeah.
and maybe I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But there
that's
there were
them, yep.
people that were writing Image saying, "I will edit your book for you because your
Basically, yeah.
grammar is just
Yeah,
terrible."
It's just awful.
there's a
they
Len
were
Senecal signature on this cover, which I'm assuming means this is probably from the Arlene administration then, which is also
That's
very
This is
cool.
a new story I've never heard before.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I've heard all of the comic shop lore at this point in
I
time.
contributed.
Yeah. No. comic
Look at
shop
this.
lore
Look
is
at this
never
double
ending.
pager. This is
Anger
beautiful.
wells up within him.
I can't wait to see it in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's
Now
just
this is-
Shadowhawk jumping off of a big.
Okay,
This is
I saw it earlier.
Shadowhawk 3. So this is Shadowhawk.
Look at the
um,
weird printing too. Look how like light and washed out
Yeah.
it is.
on one, and it's just on the opposite page each
Yeah.
time. That is
I think
something.
the same colorist Aaron Lee uses did this.
And then next up we
Yeah.
have The Pact, also by Jim Valentino. Matt Banning doing the inks this time, and Walt McDaniel doing pencils, with Mike Wolfe being the letterer.
Who's Mike Wolfe, Chance Wolfe? They must be
I
related.
would assume so. I can't
They're
tell
probably
you
from
with
the same
certainty.
pack.
Very good.
Very
Oh, that was an easy setup too. I should have
Thank you,
saw that
guys.
one coming.
But great line work.
Easy Martin.
Do you
This
know
is-
if any of this stuff ever made it into another. Well, it's got to be a preview for whatever these books are, so you can probably see the colored.
I remember that
versions.
pack logo.
The pack that had to be a comic.
Yeah, that was
because
definitely
I know
printed.
that.
It's one of the ones I don't ever remember collecting from the dollar bins. I also don't remember J.P. Slaughter very well. Chris Wozniak, letter and
J.P.
artist.
Slaughter, financial investing.
Yeah, I don't remember this at all. The pack definitely.
The pack.
There's
yeah,
a
that-
man in that car. Now put your friggin' mask on. Great writing. No Mark. No Mark.
Look at
Millar.
the. Oh, I hate when you have to flip.
Wow.
Oh, you don't have to flip. No,
You don't really have to flip this one.
this is way better than I thought it was going to be.
So earlier, before the podcast, you were talking about Guerrilla Comics.
Yes.
What was the connection there?
I believe that Gorilla was an imprint that came along, and it must have been '99 if it's
Yeah,
Valentino was
that
there.
Mark Wade's. It was a bunch of solid
Kurt
writers. from the time.
Busiek,
Yeah.
must have been doing
Carl Kessel.
Carl Kessel.
Um,
He pronounced Carl Kessel's name differently.
oh, we're all been saying it wrong. We like to learn.
Also,
that here.
how do you, is this the correct pronunciation? Zeitgeist?
I think so.
That sounds right to me.
He had a different
Zeitgeist?
pronunciation of
Yeah.
that as well. I just wasn't sure if he was pronouncing things wrong or I'm pronouncing things wrong. Jonathan, tell me if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Zeitgeist.
I
So,
do,
yeah, so it was basically the Image artist version with
Yes.
writers, and there were some financial problems that hit them right away.
Who was backing them? So it's
I
all of these
Don't quite remember
because it was like the big wave of we had the big wave of
Yeah.
artists to start off Image. Now the writers are here. And that was a very big deal, but it went nowhere
And if
very
they just
quickly.
paired those writers with the Image
Those
artists, we might have gotten some really amazing stuff
Mhm.
that would have
yes. Ooh.
helped prolong the Image superheroes.
You can get all of your. You can improve your image with Shadowhawk in puffy blood splatter on a blue T-shirt.
Puffy paint. Puffy paint.
Puffy blood splatter.
Remember Puffy paint?
Held over by popular demand, the glow-in-the-dark helmet design on the back of the T-shirt.
We should get
Oh,
Aaron
wow.
to do an all puffy ink Wesley issue.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Choose from the Red Hot Shadowhawk 2 splatter design or Savage Dragon versus Shadowhawk in a full-color glossy.
What ones I've been
posters.
getting, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Well, I don't know. I think I've talked out my understanding of the Larsen and Valentino beef. I hope there's not a beef. I hope that like
Let's hope
it's
the
such an
meeting goes
important
well.
part of my childhood
Mhm.
that like Image is more important to me, I think, than Marvel. Obviously, without Marvel, if Marvel didn't exist, we wouldn't get an Image. But like that was so interesting as an 11-year-old kid,
Mhm.
and I had just enough exposure to Marvel to where it's like, oh wow, like I've been reading comics for like a year and a half. These are all the creators who are like superstars, and they're all doing their own thing. And it was a little bit more adult and a little bit more, you felt like the art was just incredible, and it didn't need matter that the anatomy is all wonky and the storytelling's terrible and grammatically the books are awful. It was just something about the magic of being a kid and watching and picking up these books and
universes just exploding.
yeah, where I didn't get to start at Spider-Man at issue 1. I had to start Spider-Man at issue 346. I think that's correct. Here I get to start with Spawn #1.
If you can find it.
With Dragon #1. With Youngblood #1. And I can see the start of these universes, and it just, it blew your little kid mind, and it's why I'm here.
And 2 of those books are still going today.
2 of those
they are.
It's why I'm here. It really was one of these things where like it was so cool and so different. And it was a little dangerous, and it was dark, and there was blood. I remember the Dragon letter column one time. He said "badass." I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a tiny word "ass" in here." But
and without Image, I don't think comics would be anything like they are now, because it would just be this homogenized Marvel and DC stuff over and over and over again, like they're doing now. And this opened up some different types of storytelling you could do. Right. And while a lot of it was just centered completely on art, there were some great concepts and things going on that really, I think, just paved the way for other creators to come in.
I think it's a shame that we'll probably never get movies or more expanded television shows, so on and so forth, from some of these characters. Like a Youngblood animated show would have been very, very fun.
Never going to happen now.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Thanks, legal issues.
Scotty W. Middle says, felt a bit dangerous. And I would agree that, like, with Marvel Comics, I felt like that was safe, and my parents wouldn't, like, oh, he's just reading Spider-Man or Batman. But, like, if I was reading Spawn, I almost feel like I had to kind of be a little deceptive. That, it's not, there's no pornographic element to it, but like I think
that came later, Savage.
Yeah, that came later in Dragon. But like what was the Ice Cream Man one? With like it was an issue where he's like diddling kids or something like that, and the one panel is he's strung up with chains in the back, and there's like popsicle sticks that are jammed into him. That it's just like, if my mom saw that, I don't.
Are you talking about Spawn #1?
Is that #1?
Is it #1? Okay.
#1 ends with the big bloody Billy. I can't remember it. Billy Kincaid.
Yeah.
Ends with the big bloody Billy Kincaid, because that's how Local Man #1 ended. They did an exact rip, and that was what invested me in the Local Man series, because they just copied the final panel from Spawn #1 over again. It was awesome.
But there was a little bit of, again, and I was the perfect age for it. I think that as a teenager, I would have loved it.
Yep.
I had just enough comic book under my belt to know what was going on. You've got Wizard hyping all of this stuff. I think Wizard too. That was, not that Wizard saved Image later on, but boy, they put, the guys were all super popular. But this was just your Tiger Beat magazine telling me as a 10-year-old boy who I should fanboy for, and it was the Image guys. So I don't know. I think that's it. I think I've talked myself through my Image oral history and the current beef between Valentino and Larsen. Yes. My Image oral.
Your Image oral. Naughty.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have anything?
Rob Liefeld has announced his retirement.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Deadpool, yeah. Coming
the
this
subject
fall.
of Image creators, yeah. So the long and short of the story is he's decided after, what did he say, 30 years,
It was 90,
after
80.
No, 90.
Well, after 30 plus
Deadpool?
years working on Deadpool.
That was the 80s. Was that 89 or something? Was that 90?
I'm going to say 1990, but
Either way.
we don't fact check.
89 is close enough to 90 anyway.
Yeah,
So
we don't fact check. 89, it's fine.
Rob Liefeld has been working on Deadpool in many iterations for the last 3 decades at least, if not longer. And he feels that he should go out on the top. He doesn't want to let his hand-eye coordination limit him. I don't know.
I thought that was a weird comment.
It is.
I'm worried about that comment.
Yeah,
Actually.
that
maybe there is
maybe there's
something that
something
he
going
knows
on
that is
yeah.
private still.
Actually, that's kind of was my take on that thing. He's not even. How old was he? 50 something.
He's young. Yeah, he's not 60 yet.
No.
As far as I know.
And he was definitely the youngest of the creators.
Yep.
Over the image, like 4 or 5 years younger than
Yes.
some of these guys. But yeah, what is a comment? I
Yeah,
did
it was
find that to
was
be a weird
just the way he was
comment.
doing, like that's kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you hope there's not a medical something there.
But we'll find out as the year goes on. It seems like Deadpool's the only thing he's taking a step back from. But obviously, if he starts saying, I'm just gonna not be doing this anymore, then we'll start to worry. His Whatnot is very successful. I mean, if he could never draw another comic again, he's set for life. So it's not like he's hurting for anything.
He's got Image Founder money.
He has Image Founder money. Yes.
That's one of those things. I go, if I'm Rob Liefeld, I draw one more Deadpool one shot,
Yeah.
and I just tell my kids here's your ticket.
Mhm.
If you ever need to cash it in, cash it in.
That acting thing doesn't work out.
Yep.
Because you could sell it to Marvel for a lot of
Yeah,
money.
oh yeah.
Yeah, he does have one more Deadpool story that's coming out sometime this year.
Yeah, I think it's in the fall.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the value of that book too. As most of us know at this point, he launched a variant for the Thundercats book that came out this week, and according to him and a couple other people, the amount of orders for that book almost doubled when he announced that he had a final order cutoff cover.
70.
Was it 110,000 or something like that initial, and an additional 70,000 or something like that? It was
70,000 plus.
Yeah. And all these numbers are unreliable. It's difficult to track this stuff now, but I believe it.
But either way, Liefeld is still selling, so we'll see what this does to the value of Deadpool books as the year progresses, especially with the movie coming out.
Yeah.
What a time for him to be retiring. So if any of you have what is it, New Mutants 99? Is that the first appearance of Deadpool?
98.
98. If you have one of those, don't sell it yet. It'll probably be worth more at the end of this year.
Especially if that movie's good.
We'll see. I think even if the movie's bad, that book will still maintain some form of value. Deadpool is it seems to be my generation's big hero. Whether I agree with that or not is neither here nor there.
The auction for the Heroes Reborn Captain America art, did we ever hear the total on that?
Oh, did he sell Big Chest Cap?
Yeah. It was a big thing 4 months ago.
Yeah,
or
6
something,
months ago,
yeah.
whatever.
I
That's a
don't
very
remember
good. We'll have
that
to
at all.
research that. I don't know. Scott W. Middle. Rob made that barrel-chested cap
Yeah,
comment.
that's it.
Must still sting a little. I dig is crazy.
Crazy is definitely a good word for Rob.
By the way, fun fact: do you know whose iteration of Avengers is the #1 selling Avengers book?
Is it not Rob Liefeld?
It's Rob
It is Rob
Liefeld. He'll
Liefeld.
tell
Is it
you
still
every
Rob
single time the word
Liefeld's?
Avengers is mentioned around him.
Yeah, he doesn't want anyone to forget that.
Nope. With no variants.
That is something that's a bigger deal, especially now in the comic market.
Say
'cause
what you will about Rob, man. That old guy can still sell a book.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's wild. It's
Absolutely.
wild. I can't. We've had this discussion.
Yeah,
Do
who
younger
is it?
people seek out Rob Liefeld? I don't think so. I
Not
just think he
intentionally.
has such a stranglehold on old men
Yep.
like us that whatever he puts out, that's just what will.
Yep.
Lego Man says Rob Liefeld's Captain America art sells for $132,000.
Wow.
That's incredible. It's also realistic, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's
It's pretty iconic.
it's such an iconic piece of art, and it's it's not $1 million, but it's also I think that's a realistic
Yeah. That's
number.
And it's only promotional art. It was never actually used in anything. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
There was never a cover.
no, that
Stop.
was an early promotional piece that he
That's
ripped
wild.
off. Yeah,
Stop.
That probably made that even more valuable for the people that were pursuing that
Yep.
book. I mean, I would not pay $137,000 for that, but hats off to whoever did.
Yeah. All right, Martin, you got anything?
I think I'm good.
All right. I think we're good too.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, Evan, you are not talented enough to get any work anywhere anywhere but the comic shop. So you can only draw here. You can't draw for Marvel or DC. It's
Okay.
just not going to happen, man.
Well, that's a very safe bet that I will never draw for Marvel or DC. Thank you, and I'm more than
Just
comfortable.
saying, sir. Just saying.
That would
Know
be
your
my.
place.
Oh my gosh, that would be a pipe dream. Like I could never draw a book, but like I feel like I could if I really like tried. I feel like I could draw a cover that would just be like we would all look at it and go, it's a cover. But like Larsen says, they're not trying to find the guy that's as good as the worst guy in the company.
Yeah,
they're trying to find the
exactly.
best guy.
Next week. You want to talk about next week real quick?
Oh yeah. Well, do you want to talk? You want?
Well, in the course of the podcast, we have booked Jonathan Ashline to come in. He's going to promote his new Kickstarter book, and we're going to talk superhero romance.
Ooh, because
It could get steamy.
yeah.
Could. Or it could get weird. Superheroes go both.
Oh, it's going to get
We all might make out. Who knows?
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's a little tease. Next week, Jonathan, another successful Kickstarter. Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Should have asked for more money, but we'll cover that next week.
It's okay. He's still got a stretch goal or two.
Yeah. Does he?
I would assume so. Jonathan's the kind of person to rise above when it comes to things like that. He always is looking for a little bit extra from all of his supporters. Not in a
Jonathan,
bad
you have a
way.
week to make a stretch goal happen if there isn't one, so Michael doesn't yell at you or something. He can get violent.
All right. Well, this has been
Anyway.
the Comic Shop Does a Podcast. Tune in next week for Jonathan Ashline and Horny Vampires. My name's Evan Coy, here with special guest host.
Michael Callie.
No, and very special guest star.
Me, Martin.
Oh, have a good night, everybody. Apologies
Apologies
to Jack Kirby.
And Jim Valentino.